Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Swallowed Star based on novel. So let's start. Within the room, Luo Feng sat crossed-legged. Absorbing a new crystal always gets increasingly difficult. However, my body is much stronger than before, who knows how many I can absorb now. Luo Feng wasn't confident in absorbing 10 Blood River crystals simply because the Black Warrior was but a legend in Blood River continent. From his absorption back then, his genetic makeup was much stronger now, even with the Nameless Manual. However, that was only the first level. It was still extremely hard to become a Black Warrior. Let's begin. He flipped his hand and brandished one Blood River crystal. It was a triangular crystal that was completely blood red and translucent. It gave off energy ripples that were almost like a heartbeat. Back then, when I first saw a crystal, I thought it was like a life form. But now I know that it's the blood crystals from the fallen beast god. Luo Feng slashed his palm and allowed the crystal to make contact with the bleeding wound. The killing intent permeated his skin and his body changed. He was familiar with this feeling. For someone that had absorbed over 100 crystals, this level of pain was nothing. After a while, the fourth crystal was completely absorbed. Luo Feng was very calm. Absorbing up to 5 or 6 crystals was within his expectations. Who knows which one I can get to? He flipped his hand and brandished the fifth crystal. 6th. 7th. The 7th one succeeded as well. Luo Feng's face was covered in perspiration from the pain. But his eyes were gleaming excitedly. I actually succeeded in absorbing the 7th. Back then, it took countless years to produce an absolute genius like the blood god Bhe, and he only absorbed 8 crystals. My body genetics aren't exactly the strongest. Is it because I trained in the Nameless Manual that I'm able to go through this change? I'll try the 8th. Luo Feng took out another crystal. Absorb. Success. I've caught up with Bhe. He blinked his eyes. Let's try the 9th. He couldn't help but grow in excitement. He may truly become a Black Warrior. He easily withstood the killing intent from the 9th, as the energy poured into his body. His muscles and skin began to tear apart. Kacha. His bones broke. After which the Blood River energy flowed back into the crystal. The absorption of the 9th crystal had failed. Absorbing the 8th is already beyond my expectations. I only have an Earthling's human body. The only special trait is being trained in the Nameless Manual. And it allowed me to reach the level of that absolute genius blood god Bhe. Luo Feng was shocked. The Nameless Manual was simply unbelievable. In truth, once one's genetics reached its limits, it was hard to evolve further. The first level of the Nameless Manual allowed him to raise his body strength 3 times. What level of gene evolution did it take to get such an effect? Absorbing 8 crystals have very little effect on my strength though. Luo Feng shook his head. Absorbing 3, 10, 100, these were their limits. After the 3rd crystal, one's melding with the universe energies would double. After the 10th, one would reach 3 times. And triggering the Blood River energy would cause one's cells to evolve temporarily and rise in strength. At 8 crystals, however, compared to passing the 3 crystals from before, his strength had risen just a little more than before. He walked out of the room full of perspiration. He jumped into the pool barefoot and swam about casually at the bottom. He was already very satisfied with absorbing 8 crystals. Even though his strength didn't rise that much, it showed how powerful the Nameless Manual was. If I can get the 2nd level of the Nameless Manual, my body will once again go through a huge evolution. I may be able to absorb 10 crystals. Luo Feng shook his head helplessly. For such a heavenly manual, getting the 1st level alone was a huge miracle. How hard would it be to get the 2nd? The Earth body is at its limit. I'll let the golden horned beast try to absorb more crystals. Luo Feng lay on the rocks as the warm water flowed about him. Simultaneously, he began trying to let the beast absorb more Blood River crystals. He wasn't too anxious about letting the beast absorb more crystals. mainly due to the fact that absorbing 100 crystals seemed to already be the maximum amount. Luo Feng could withstand the killing intent and power of the 101st crystal long ago. However, the right claw was unable to absorb any more blood river energy. The beast god howling picture formed from triggering the energy was already very perfect. The right claw had reached its limit. Then, he could only absorb the crystals with the rest of the body. However, no matter how strong his willpower was, to absorb another 100 crystals would at most make its other body parts as strong as the right claw. Even so, its entire body strength would double from before. And this is only after absorbing another 100. One had to know that each new crystal got harder and harder. Luo Feng didn't dare expect too much. 101st. 102nd. Within his internal world, the beast began its absorption. He picked the back portion this time mainly because this was the core of the body's strength, and the wings were on its back too. If it was strong enough, it would be easier to use the Shogu wings and unleash its strength. The back just begun to absorb crystals, the gene change is starting from 0, hence, the pain is very minimal. Luo Feng smiled as he lay in the river. Crystal after crystal. 110th. 120. 130. The killing intent got stronger and stronger. However, Luo Feng was only a few hundred years old when he absorbed the first 100, and with a few thousands years passing since then, his long years of comprehension and connection to the universe source had trained his consciousness and willpower. It made his mental state strength much stronger than before. Even though he was only in the first level of mental state training, knowing oneself, his willpower was incredible. The higher level of mental state training may not necessarily be stronger than the lower levels. The second level of innocence compared to the first level was normally much stronger. However, Luo Feng constantly pushed the limits of the first level. His willpower back then was but a few hundred years old. 140th. 150th. 160th. 162, 163, 164, 165. The 166th crystal has failed, my willpower cannot take it. Luo Feng revealed a smile. To absorb 165 crystals is already not bad. It gets harder towards the end, and my willpower has improved quite a bit over these few thousand years. Even though the beast had absorbed 65 crystals in its back, the entire strength of the beast had probably only risen by 10%. As the back strength was but a small portion of its entire strength, it couldn't compare to the right claw, hence the growth was limited. The fourth day Luo Feng stayed in the camp. Rumble. 3 silhouettes flew above the mountain ranges, and quickly reached Luo Feng's private island. Ha ha, you are finally here. Luo Feng strode out. Sir, these are the goods you ordered. The 3 silhouettes were led by an undying. He respectfully handed a world ring. This world ring is complimentary. The ring flew straight at Luo Feng and floated before him. HM. Luo Feng accepted it excitedly. After fighting for so long and thinking hard, he was simply just waiting for the goods. He had completely spent the 6.1 billion mixed elements. Giving a world ring worth 1 mixed element was normal for such a huge deal. We'll take our leave. Go on. Luo Feng waved his hand and entered his house excitedly. From start to end, the 3 workers from the virtual universe company never set foot on his island. As this was a private island, the army had ruled that no one was allowed to set foot on it without Luo Feng's permission. They are finally here. I spent all of my 6.1 billion. Luo Feng sat in the chair beside and immediately used the Mosha body to check the goods. He had gotten 6.1 billion from Black Heart and Desire Emperor back then, immediately exchanging all of it for 6.1 billion points. Under normal circumstances, only after becoming undying would one be able to exchange mixed elements for points. However, after Luo Feng became the disciple of the primal chaos city leader, his authority had risen higher than most emperors. Naturally, he had the right to exchange mixed elements for points. After getting 6.1 billion points, plus the 180 million he had from before, he began to splurge. Firstly, he bought two types of scanners. A large one that cost 2 billion points, only few emperors could afford something like that. And a small scanner that cost 1.8 billion, even though it could only scan an area of 20 kilometer, its detail and level of scan was akin to the large scanners worth hundreds of billions. Meaning, with this small scanner, as long as a few powerful warriors discovered Luo Feng, even if his own large scanner couldn't detect them, his small one would. Secondly, he bought the best combination of items to nurture the cloud contact vine to undying level, spending a total of 1.53 billion points. Naturally, even so, the chances of the cloud contact vine becoming undying was still only 50%. Thirdly, he bought one flame god core crystal, akin to a high emperor's self-destruct. This was enough to kill even a high-level emperor, or harm a pinnacle emperor, and he had spent 800 million points on this. Back then in Primal Chaos City, when Luo Feng had 3 billion points, he had exchanged for flame god crystals before. He had gotten 2 low-level emperor crystals, after spending 400 million points. The only thing was that he was never actually forced to use them yet. With the 3 of them together, he spent a total of 6.13 billion, leaving him with only 150 million points. He couldn't wait any longer. To make the cloud contact vine reach undying, the evolution process would require quite some time. While returning, I'll evolve it. I'll head out now, back to Yangji main continent. After bidding goodbye to the emperors he had been hanging out with, Luo Feng sat in his ship alone and left the 26th camp, heading back to the main continent. This was a disc-shaped E9 ship. It had begun universe travel at the spot closest to the 26th camp. Within the dark universe, the ship is proceeding at light speed. It will take 122 hours to reach Yangji main continent's travel spot. Barbata's voice resounded within the control room. Accelerate a little. Luo Feng ordered within, make it so that we reach there in 3.5 days. Yes. The ship slightly got faster, maintaining its stability. Luo Feng closed his eyes, saying softly, according to the plan, the cloud contact vine evolution process requires 3 days. I hope that it succeeds. Within his internal world, in the center island of the continent, a thick vine had spread over tens of thousands of kilometers. It was the full form of the cloud contact vine. Cloud contact vine. Howl. 10 thick and several kilometer long vine flew straight towards the black-clothed Luo Feng. Hua hua. The surrounding leaves immediately made way and cleared a space for Luo Feng. Cloud contact vine, good. Luo Feng rubbed the little vine and smiled, make an area with a diameter of 1,000 kilometers. Countless leaves swiftly pulled back. The surrounding space was cleared, a clear empty space of 1,000 kilometers in diameter around Luo Feng appeared. Enough. Black-clothed Luo Feng flipped his hand and 7 glaring red fruits appeared in mid-air. First step. Luo Feng got serious. Vine, swallow them. He ordered. Rumble. 7 vines rushed over and immediately swallowed the watermelon-sized red glaring fruits. After which, red light began to glow throughout the plant. It seemed to struggle slightly from the pain. Pain, pain. The vine communicated. Bear with it. Luo Feng flipped his hand and a huge stone basin appeared in mid-air, and it was filled with a jade green-like liquid. Swallow it. He continued. As time passed, all sorts of materials appeared and the vine continued to swallow them all. According to the detailed instructions, just this process alone took up to 2 whole days. The amount of materials added up to only a small portion of the vine. However, one could only imagine how much it was considering it was worth 1.53 billion points. As for the final step, these 18 materials, swallow them all. Luo Feng's eyes gleamed with madness as he ordered. Seemingly normal vines that gave off terrifying energy madly wrapped about the materials. In the blink of an eye, it swallowed everything. Vine. Now it's all up to you, do you break through to undying, or will my investment be for naught? It's a gamble now. Luo Feng stared at the surrounding vines. It seemed calm after swallowing the latest materials, however crackling noises almost like cannons resounded within. Tens of kilometers of vines began to glow with colorful lights. It was mesmerizing. The vines also constantly tore apart with countless fragments leaving the main body. It relied on its regenerative ability to regrow them. Tear. Regrow. The old fragments vanished as new ones appeared. The entire cloud contact vine seemed to have shed its entire whole body and evolved to something else. Changing over and over, it continued to evolve. The efficiency was terrifying. Time passed and Luo Feng watched from mid-air as the vine twisted over and regrew. He couldn't help but mutter, "Withstand it, you have to continue on. The moment you stop, the evolution will fail." After 1 whole hour, the cloud contact vine that tore apart every few seconds had evolved like that for 1 whole hour. An hour later, the now completely gold cloud contact vine, which had been storing its special energy within, seemed to finally find the chance to explode open. The originally excited and glaring gold cloud contact vine suddenly had special explosions of energy from every leaf. Its energy soared instantly. The gold cloud contact vine instantly froze up, ice crystals forming throughout its vines and leaves. It was like a huge ice sculpture, not moving at all, almost like it was dead. Only a faint, very weak energy rippled from within, small changes still occurring on the surface of the vines. Black-clothed Luo Feng felt the surrounding cold and said softly, "So cold. I wonder who in the universe created this evolution process for the cloud contact vine. The many steps are all incredibly detailed. It should have been some powerful chemist or many generations of chemists constantly perfecting it." Seeing the evolution process reminded him of techniques used by chemists. The last day. Vine. Him to Luo Feng looked at the ice statue. "You have to withstand it to the last step and break through to undying. Otherwise you'll fail. It's the last day, you have to last till the end." This 1 day of being frozen was the most dangerous step of the entire evolution process. Seconds passed as little changes occurred within the vine. Luo Feng held his breath and watched as he was in fear of the vine crumbling. "Hold on. You have to," he muttered. Every second seemed extra long. It felt like 100 years, or even 1,000. During this 1 day of being frozen, there were many tiny changes occurring within the cloud contact vine. After it finally reached its limit, the ice crystals instantly melted off and the cloud contact vine rushed madly into the sky. The 216 vines were still with countless vines and leaves expanding and waving about in the air. Rumble. A terrifying spirit shook the area, breaking through the confines and connecting to the universe source. This is the final step. Luo Feng stared hard in mid-air, gripping his fists hard. Even though he had the 100-vine star-eating plant breaking through back then, the difference between the 100-vine star-eating plant and his cloud contact vine was too huge to compare. The probability of that 100-vine star-eating plant breaking through was extremely high. As for his cloud contact vine, it only had a 50% probability, and the amount of materials used was much more. The vine had reached the final step. A formless pressure descended. Luo Feng, who was originally in mid-air, was forced to land on the ground and kneel from the pressure. The universe source pressure. Luo Feng was extremely gleeful. It succeeded. Its consciousness had connected to the universe source. The laws had descended. At this moment, it had broken through life's constraints and became an undying rumble. Countless amounts of undying energy infused with wood laws poured into the cloud contact vine, as the gold leaves madly absorbed all the undying energy. This was the only chance it had to endlessly absorb the energy. And world energy within fused with its body too, and became undying energy. Its energy evolved. Body evolution. Its spirit imprint swiftly entered every bit of its undying energy. From now, the undying energy was no longer free, but governed by its spirit imprint. Even if its body was torn apart, the separated undying energy belonged only to it, allowing it to reform. Infuse into every bit of God energy, every cell, all into its spirit imprint. Able to revive with even a shred of itself. Undying body. Luo Feng muttered from the distance, and his eyes were filled with glee. The universe source slowly dispersed. And the huge crystal-like vine that spread over hundreds of thousands of kilometers continued to change colors. Gold, silver, purple, black, green, blue. It began to control the pressure it emanated, yet the energy was still terrifying. Everything was calm. The vine swiftly shrank, and became a crystal vine only a few meters tall. Black-clothed Luo Feng flew over and landed beside it, gently rubbing the vine and smiling. "Congratulations, vine." "Thank you, master." A gentle voice resounded from the vine. "When are you preparing to build your god country?" Luo Feng asked. "The star-eating plant has already built his. Master can use his to do god country teleportation. Hence, there's no rush for me to do so. When you have extra time to look for another spot, I will then let my internal world fuse with a space fragment into a god country." The vine's consciousness was communicating with Luo Feng. Its voice was gentle but clear. "Ha ha." Luo Feng was very happy within. Honestly, the cloud contact vine had been with him since Earth. After so long and countless experiences, the vine had been fighting hard for him. In terms of feelings, it was almost like a brother to Luo Feng. Naturally, he had more feelings for it than the star-eating plant. When the star-eating plant had become undying, Luo Feng was naturally happy that he had a strong ally. However, at this moment, it felt like a good friend had broken through to undying. He felt happy for it. "No problem, I'm not lacking in time. We will go through universe travel later, and look for a safe spot to teleport away via the star-eating plant god country. Then we can choose a safe spot for you to build your god country." Luo Feng said. "Thank you, master." Its voice still gentle. Ha ha. Luo Feng was very happy. Back then his teacher had nurtured his 108 vine cloud contact vine to undying, with that it had the power of a low official. Luo Feng's cloud contact vine had 216 vines. At undying level, it was akin to a pinnacle official. And because of its sturdiness and strength, even though it was only at pinnacle official level, its body strength was akin to a low emperor human. After 3.5 days of flying in the dark universe, the disc-shaped ship finally went through universe travel and arrived at the closest travel point to Yang-ji main continent. Within the control room, the cloud contact armor melded with his skin. The black-armored Luo Feng had a pair of black feathered wings on his back as he gazed into the distant space. It was almost like he could see the distant Yang-ji man continent. "It sure riles me up. Luckily, that warrior is still on the main continent," Luo Feng said softly. He could clearly feel the powerful calling from the distance, one that exceeded the soldier and general armor. Every cell in his body was responding and clearly locking onto the position of this calling, and it was on the main continent. It was obvious that warrior with the treasure was still there. "That's good. I'll go look for you very soon," Luo Feng thought. "Barbata, find a desolate spot around here," Luo Feng ordered. Understood. The ship flew swiftly. The seventh battlefield was separated into different regions. Some regions had desolate areas with very few warriors. Hence, after flying for more than a day, the ship found a rather desolate spot. The cabin door opened. A black-armored Luo Feng jumped out alone, floating in space as he kept the ship in his world ring. He became a black beam of light and landed on an asteroid, after which he drilled deep inside. There were many signs of old tunnels within. However, Luo Feng could tell they were there from a long time ago. Scan with the scanners. This asteroid's caves hasn't had life forms in here for the past 100,000 years. Luo Feng looked around and nodded. Very good. This asteroid has a diameter of about 10 kilometers, and its material doesn't seem to be weaker than that of shattered stars. It's definitely enough to be used as a marker. "Star eating, give me a leaf," Luo Feng ordered. A leaf floated out from the star-eating plant on his shoulder and landed in his palms. This leaf was after all formed from undying energy. If a scanner was to scan it, it could easily feel its energy. Luo Feng brandished a space ring and placed the leaf within, after which he tossed the space ring into a crack in the asteroid. Marker settled. Luo Feng smiled. Star eating, God country teleportation. Luo Feng ordered. The star-eating plant beside him lit up, glowing with a glaring light as it engulfed the entire area, with Luo Feng within. Weng. Luo Feng, who was engulfed within, gazed at a distant god mountain. They traveled through this light-speed path and entered the god country. As they entered the star-eating plant's god country and later teleported out from it, they arrived straight within human territory. The god country teleportation was very different from normal teleportation. Teleportation could be used any time during battle, but the god country teleportation couldn't. There had to be two different points opening a path for the god country teleportation, and during this process, the pathway had to be extremely steady. But a battle could easily disrupt the path and make it fail. Hence, even though they had the god country teleport, no Undying could actually use it during an intense battle. Asterisk 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 asterisk. When Luo Feng was heading towards Wulong Starfield back then, he had left the star-eating plant's items at several spots, all for the sake of being able to travel back. Within a mess of star bodies, there was a cave. Gold light lit the area. A black-armored Luo Feng appeared within. I've arrived. Luo Feng looked about the black cave. There was no sense of life at all. The surface gravity was only 1/10 of Earth's, without any of the gases. I've already entered humanity's territory. I have to look for a desolate spot to let the cloud contact vine build its god country. He flashed and flew out of the asteroid, in an instant reaching 1,000,000 kilometers away. After which, he sped up to light speed with his body and entered the dark universe. Normal Undyings could all do it with just their body, naturally he could do it too. Cloud contact vine, how's this spot? There aren't any life planets in the surrounding 100,000 light-years. Luo Feng floated in space. Master, let's do it here. The 2 to 3 meter tall cloud contact vine said beside him. All right. Luo Feng waved his hand and with a slash, it exceeded the strength of a normal sector Lord Pinnacle by 1,000s of times. Tear. A space slit appeared and Luo Feng stepped through with the cloud contact vine. Asterisk 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 asterisk. Within, there were countless space fragments. Luo Feng stood in space. God countries were all built within this layer of space. One had to first find a desolate spot, one that wouldn't be frequented by other warriors. Battles could easily tear open spaces, and they may unknowingly discover the God country. The universe was extremely vast, there were many suitable spots. The second requirement was that one had to take into account for God country teleportation to save money. For example, if one was always within the Ganwu universe country, then building it within the country was most suitable. That way, the teleportation would use less resources. However, to Luo Feng, he didn't really need to bother with such things, as he couldn't always remain within one universe country. Space slit. I heard it split into tens of thousands of layers. The first is the fragments. The second is the God country layer. The third is the space current. Luo Feng thought. The space layers were a terrifying space. The fragment layer was very close to the primal space, and its threat was small. Sector Lord warriors normally could already withstand this space, and the God country level was more steady. Undyings could normally survive within. The fragments were much bigger. Some had diameters of tens of thousands of kilometers, up to 100 million kilometers, etc. The next level was the space current. Even the powerful Undyings could die within. The deeper they went, the higher the threat was. It's almost like swimming in the sea, the threat near the shore is small. The deeper one goes, the larger the threat. The deep end of the ocean is tumultuous, even a good swimmer might die. Luo Feng muttered. The space layer fragment is just like that, the deeper in one goes, the more dangerous it is. He swiftly headed towards the fragments, he flew over trillions of kilometers, and spent 10 days flying. I've flown far enough, this fragment is big enough. He nodded. How's this, Vine? Very good, Master. In the distance, huge fragments were flying in disarray ahead, the huge ones were void of both space and life. Master, I'll begin building my God country. A crystal-like cloud contact vine floated beside him. A formless energy immediately locked onto the distant fragment, with a diameter of 30 million kilometers. A world appeared and it seemed to exist in another space altogether, flying towards the fragment. The fragment was affected by it and was drawn together. The two of them, one was unreal while the other solid. The two of them drew close. One was with a diameter of less than 100,000 kilometers, while another with one at 30 million kilometer. Rumble. It was almost like the sky and land were crashing. The two of them fused as they got closer. Gradually, the void space fragment began to have a world appear within. The world solidified and became real. Rumble. The fusion was a success. The internal world was gone, the God Country was formed. Master, the God Country has been built. From now on, it will continue to grow, even swallowing the space fragments about and growing bigger. The cloud contact vine brought Luo Feng into the God Country. It had a diameter of less than 100,000 kilometers. And it was constantly spreading in all directions. Luo Feng stood on a mountain peak and gazed at the expanding God Country, looking up at the huge space fragment outside it, thinking, who knows when I can become an undying. Master, your law comprehension is very high. As long as you are willing, you can probably quickly fully comprehend the space laws, and with your ability, breaking through the core wouldn't be too hard. The vine communicated, however, the moment you break through, you won't be able to produce your third clone. Right? Hence I'm afraid to train the gold laws now. He shook his head and smiled. The gold laws were indeed very easy for Luo Feng. He didn't even study it now, and at the same time, he didn't dare take the gamble. The third clone. He had high hopes for it. He had the Huisuo beast's hair for a long time. However, he didn't want to simply settle on it. He could still exchange for some fragments of rare life forms from the virtual universe company treasure trove. However, he was still waiting, because this was the final clone he would be able to make. He definitely had to pick the best. Asterisk 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 asterisk. In the 7th battlefield. Within an asteroid in a desolate area. A glaring gold light lit up the pathways and a black armored silhouette appeared. It was Luo Feng, who had left more than a month ago. The main thing was to build the God Country within the slits of space. The entire process of flying within the slits took quite some time. Actually, there was no need for him to personally enter the God Country layer, just letting the cloud contact vine do it was enough. However, he wanted to personally see the building process, as he didn't actually see it when the star-eating plant did it last time. Safe. Luo Feng looked down at his arm screen. His large scanner and small scanner had been maintaining their area, there were no other warriors around. Luo Feng flew out of the asteroid. This powerful calling, it's reminding me that the treasure awaits me. He looked in the direction of the distant main continent. However, the warrior holding such a treasure must be pretty strong. I'll have to kill him to get the treasure. At all costs. I have to get it. Move. Luo Feng took his ship and headed towards the main continent. Luo Feng headed towards the calling. After over 4 months of flying, he finally got close. 1 billion kilometer, 900 million kilometer. The distance kept getting closer. After a while, it became 300 million kilometers. Discovered the enemy's scanner, his within an ice mountain cave. Barbata communicated. His scanner has an area of 300 million kilometers too. However, his scanner is less advanced than ours. Less advanced. Luo Feng revealed a smile. Great. After having the experience of being disadvantaged, the feeling of having the advantage with the scanner once again was great, as it determined the fact that this battle was now within his control. This is the enemy's appearance. Barbata said. Luo Feng looked up, a screen appeared in mid-air and footage appeared. It was the other race warrior chatting. There were a total of 3 warriors. Your Majesty, what a pity. Even though we met that Undying, we cannot deal with him. But, we cannot let him get away like that. An underling Undying said respectfully. My strength can harm a pinnacle official, Killing them, however, is extremely hard, unless I'm willing to burn some of my undying energy. The black armored youth shook his head. Killing an undying body sure is hard, accumulating points sure is slow when one cannot kill a pinnacle official. The footage made Luo Feng frown. Able to harm a pinnacle official? Luo Feng muttered, it's unlikely that he has a treasure like the Showu wings, and if he can do that, that means he's at least a high emperor. This is troublesome, and from where the treasure seems to feel like it should on him. With a distance of 200 million kilometer, Luo Feng could feel the exact location of the treasure. He could confirm now that the item was in the same spot as the black armored youth. It was definitely on him. What do I do? It's extremely hard for me to kill a high emperor. Luo Feng frowned. Even if I use all my energy, I'd still only have 10% of a chance of killing him. Luo Feng began to plan on how to deal with the enemy. However, the basis was still the requirement of strength. If the enemy was too strong, no matter how precise his plan was, it was still useless. This black armored youth was a high emperor, that meant it was troublesome. 200 million kilometers away, within the completely frozen cave. The black armored youth was talking to his two underlings. Go reflect and train. The youth ordered. Raise your strength, only then will we be able to kill a pinnacle official. Yes, Your Majesty. The three of them seemed to be chatting, however. They were communicating mentally too, in secret. The enemy's large scanner is more advanced than ours. Luckily our smaller scanner, which only has an area of 20 kilometers, picked up his scan. The black armored youth emphasized. However, we can confirm that the enemy must be very strong considering the scanner he's using. Your Majesty, what do we do? The two of them asked. Let's pretend to keep chatting. Since he hasn't detected our small scanner, we can pretend to chat and lure him in. I can keep pretending to have high emperor level strength. A high emperor would have no threat on Yangji main continent. Even the powerful warriors would have to reconsider about using soul destruction techniques to kill a high emperor. The moment a high emperor self-destructs, that would be terrifying. Understood, Your Majesty. After confirming secretly, one of the underlings said, Your Majesty, what a pity, even though we met that undying, we cannot deal with him, and let him get away like that instead. Our strength is enough to harm a pinnacle official, but to kill one, unless I'm willing to burn part of my undying energy. The black armored youth shook his head, the difficulty of killing an undying body. The youth continued. Their act really confused Luo Feng. In truth, the black armored only had the strength of a low emperor. The difference between a high and low emperor may not seem huge, in truth the power difference was shocking. Many undyings spent countless years training and breaking through, whether it was the god body or law comprehension, the difference was shocking. A low emperor had to be careful on the main continent. A high emperor, however, could be a tyrant, unless he messed with some that was simply too powerful. The three other race warriors communicated mentally. The enemy hasn't left. His scanner is locked on us. The black armored youth said. Even though our small scanner can detect him, it can only detect his scan. With a scan of only 20 kilometer, when we truly detect him, he would already be 20 kilometer away from us. The advantage of the small scanner was just this. It could at most act as security. To rely on it to discover the enemy's location, that would be a joke. We are unable to detect his accurate location, we don't know where to flee to either. Blindly fleeing could very likely result in him catching us. The chances of us getting away safely is less than 0.1%. The youth said, our only option now is to scare him away. If we fight, we have to find our chance to flee. Understood. The two underlings replied. My plan is. The black armored youth swiftly told the two underlings his battle plan. Luo Feng continued to get closer, his scanner constantly locked on the enemy's location. Within the control room, a screen projected their every move. Luo Feng frowned suddenly. What is he doing? On the screen, the black armored youth flipped his hand. A beautiful purple flower floated beside, after which it expanded out fiercely and grew out of the caves, countless flowers with thorns pierced through the rocks. In almost an instant, The flower had spread over 100,000 kilometers. It completely wrapped the 3 other race warriors completely. Other race warrior. On the screen, the black armored youth said coldly, "I know you can hear what we are saying." Luo Feng frowned in the distance. Damn, the worst case scenario has occurred. Luo Feng had his own mini scanner, hence he was afraid of this happening. Also, he had no way to avoid it, he could only rely on luck, hoping that the enemy didn't have such a high-level mini scanner. However, from the looks of it, the enemy did have a very advanced mini scanner. Even though its area was small, it managed to discover his scan. "I do not wish to fight against such a high-level warrior," the black armored youth emphasized. "You should know that the consequence of an emperor fight is extremely severe too. I've already invited my emperor allies over. The moment the battle begins, they will rush over, and when that happens, it'll all depend on strength." The screen immediately lost its image. It was obvious the black armored youth had used his mini scanner to shut off any scanning within his 20 kilometers. Luo Feng was unable to see anything. "Master, you've invited emperor allies." The 2 underlings were surprised. "It's a ruse." The youth snorted coldly. "Do you not know this? HMPH, his strength is unknown, and he could very likely be an extremely powerful warrior. Do you think that without knowing the level of strength the enemy is, the emperor allies would rush over to help? Even if I did invite them over, the price would be too high. No one was stupid in the outer region wars. An emperor fight was risking it all, and anyone who was able to become an emperor would have his or her own methods. Who'd be willing to stupidly help out anybody? The moment they lose some of their precious trump cards, it would be too late to regret. Like the automaton warrior inviting the 2 pinnacle emperors. 1. They had to have some history or relationship. 2. The warrior had accurately measured the Silver Wing Emperor's strength along with its techniques etc. So the 2 pinnacle emperors had an idea of what to do. 3. He spent a huge price, billions of mixed elements, and that wasn't something just anybody could afford. Naturally, if it weren't for the 2 pinnacle emperors, the cost wouldn't be that absurd. Get ready for battle. HMPH, even if we can't win, I have faith in surviving. The black armored youth flipped his hand and a black disc ship appeared within the flowers. Enter the ship. If we get hit by a long-distance attack, with the flowers protecting us and the F9 ship blocking, we wouldn't lose out too much from the start. Luo Feng had lost the visual. Hence, he wasn't clear on what sort of trap his enemy had set up for him. However, tricking me once, and trying to do so again. Luo Feng thought coldly. High Emperor. If he was a High Emperor, he wouldn't act like that. Calling Emperor allies. They don't even know who I am, would they just come and help you? Also, it would take time to convince them to come over along with a huge price, it wouldn't be that easy. Barbata. Luo Feng ordered. Close the large scanner, and maintain the small one. Get close to him, within 10 million kilometers. Yes. Even though he didn't use the large scanner, as he could clearly feel the calling from the treasure, he simply had to follow that direction and get close. He had to use the large scanner initially, because he needed to know what kind of enemy he was facing, what race etc. And from the looks of it, it was the Indonesia race. This was a distant powerful race that wasn't subservient to any of the pinnacle races. Seeing one Indonesia warrior here was extremely rare. This also meant it would be very hard for him to get help. My Indonesia race friend, I will use the most beautiful fireworks to welcome you. Luo Feng said softly. This video will end here.